Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I am your host, Scott Brady, and I am here with two absolutely wonderful people that I'm so grateful to have on the podcast with me today. So I'm super excited to have Sonya and Nekota Staples from Staples InTents, Black People Off-Road, and also the new Gathering outdoor event series, which I'm super excited to attend here in the next month. So we got some stuff coming on. So thank you guys so much for being on the podcast.
Yes, thrilled to be here, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys got here via a very interesting route. So, and it was actually a total surprise to me when you said our truck is in Mexico City. So tell me how you got from Atlanta, Georgia to Mexico City to now Prescott here today.
Well, it was a dark and stormy night.
And a special thanks to Moon Fabrications for supporting this week's podcast. Moonshade by Moon Fabrications is the portable vehicle awning you've been waiting for. Moonshade is built to last, simple to set up, and ships with everything you need to mount the Moonshade to most vehicle styles without a drill right out of the box. With over 60 square feet of shade coverage and multiple setup configurations, Moonshade is the ideal choice for rigs of all sizes. Moonshade only weighs 8 pounds and shrinks down to the size of a yoga mat, so you can pack more of what you need out on the trail. Visit moonfab.com. That's MOONFAB.com to place your order today. For the worst summer sun, treat yourself to the best. Moonshade has you covered. Thanks, Moonshade.
All right. So earlier this year, we pulled out of Atlanta. I want to say it was like late May, right? Am I remembering? Early May?
When we headed to Mexico?
Yes. When did we do that?
That was May.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we headed down to Cancun because our niece was getting married. Her name is Kashana and Trey.
Hey.
Yeah, we love them so dearly. They're really big supporters of us. So we were going down for the wedding, and we had this great idea. Why don't we just drive?
That's so cool, though.
We recently transitioned to full-time overlanding, and when they announced that they were getting married in Cancun, we were like, oh, I guess we'll drive.
Yeah. So that ended up being our maiden voyage for taking this trip, and our maiden voyage being that we had just outfitted our 2016 Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series, and which we belovedly called Dot.
I love it.
It's just named after my grandmother.
Oh,
because it's so strong and resilient. My grandmother, she'll be 100 in December.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I hope to be as strong as Dot. So
Same.
Same.
yeah, awesome.
But
so you guys decided to go down to drive to the wedding. How cool was that?
Yeah, so the trip took us from Atlanta all along the Gulf Coast into Cancun. We probably went as far in the Yucatan as Tulum.
Yep.
Sure.
Stayed in Bacalar for a few days, and then we headed up north to Mexico City. I think it's when you found out about our Mexico trip.
I did.
Because from Mexico City, we flew to Denver to OR.
Yeah.
Outdoor retailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and once we came back, we made our way to the coast, to Acapulco, and then slowly snaked our way up the western coast.
And you guys had to be on a little bit of a quicker timeline to get down to the wedding because you were just coming back from another amazing journey in Africa, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So for those that are listening, that is just setting the stage for the incredible things that these two have done. And it's so inspiring to see their travels. But I would love to hear more about how you guys got from starting your careers. I'd love to hear more about the careers that you guys have had and what brought you to that point of saying, we're not going to do this day-to-day professional work. We're going to transition into being a full-time overlander like you just described, because that's so inspiring and people need to hear about what does it take to make that transition? So for you to talk about what your careers were, and how that kind of got you to that point of deciding to step off the rat race.
Yeah. For me, I am now a retired engineer out of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I served for about 20 years there. Before then, I was in the Air Force for 6 years as a PMEL, Precision Maintenance Equipment Laboratory Specialist. We focused on electronic technician stuff as well as calibrations.
Yeah.
So
we both have that history of being in the Air Force together. So that's cool.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
And we use the same barber. Bic.
Y'all have so much in common.
We do. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Blue Jacket. That's an inside joke. We may share more about Blue Jacket in a little bit. So he's a highlight of the Staples InTents
More to
equipment
come.
list. Yeah, more to come. So you were in the Air Force, and then you started a 20-year career in the nuclear regulatory systems. And is that something that you were also involved with, Sonya, or what was your career track?
So no, I was almost employed at Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but the Atlanta office decided that both of us being in the same office wasn't a good idea, and they probably knew then way better than we knew that we didn't need to work together, live together, and work together.
We weren't ready then.
Right.
I gotcha.
But after I graduated from A&T, Nekota and I, we both went to North Carolina A&T. We're physics majors, and we met in college, my freshman year, his junior year. But after I graduated, moved to Atlanta with Nekota and started working for Lockheed Martin. So I worked in quality engineering for 15 years there, and then kind of got tired of that job and transitioned to another position doing quality engineering. And I think 2020, my sister had recently passed away, and we had taken our cross-country trip for the year to California. We were sitting on a cliff in California. I was super stressed because I was like way over my head with work, and we were supposed to be enjoying ourselves, in this beautiful experience, and we couldn't. And I was like, Nekota, I can't do this anymore. I was like, can we just create a plan to focus on Staples InTents? Because we had already created it, but it was more of a hobby. So that day on the side of the cliff, I resigned from my job and really went in and focused full time on growing our passion.
You were literally standing at the precipice. Yeah.
Literally.
And Sonya, how much did you find that loss of your sister impacted you being able to make that decision? Or what? How did that feed to that? Because
I think my sister and my mother, who both passed away, they were always big supporters of me and me being happy.
Right.
And I think in that moment I wasn't happy about anything. And you're going to make me cry right now. But yeah, they just really wanted me to be happy. In my mother's last days, as well as my sister's last days, they really focused on my happiness.
Right.
And because of that, and I wasn't happy, it was a really easy decision for me to make. And having Nekota support made it even better.
And maybe it was that lesson of that they've passed the torch to you for you to
make myself happy.
Make those decisions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I found recently with my own mother's passing is that you start to really be aware of how short life is. You get these very, very, we have little insights as we go through life, but then there are times that we get a very clear message that we only have so much time. So.
Yeah. And I think shortly after that, after me resigning from my job, Nekota and I, we made the decision that we were going to go full-time overlanding because life is short.
Right.
And Nekota, his family that he can talk about, but his nephew passed away in 2020. His mother had breast cancer. His father, had so many back surgeries to the point where now he's not even walking. So there was just so much tragedy
that was taking place
during that time. And it's like, you only have one opportunity to live. So why not take it?
Yeah.
Well, and when I look at you two as well, you guys are like hyper competent individuals. So you guys have these rich degrees and professional experience that you've had. If you've got to go back to doing that, you can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you guys have all of this experience. I mean, I can't. You've told me how many times that your employer tried to get you to come back.
They love us.
Right. So that maybe gives some confidence too, to say, you know what, we're going to really give this a shot.
Yeah.
And to come into something like Staples InTents and Black People Off Road and The Gathering with all of this professional experience, I think it sets you guys up to be really successful entrepreneurs too, because you kind of already know how to make big things happen.
Yeah, we're learning. It's very much like the entire experience. When we first started, we had very little knowledge about camping. When we first bought our 1997 Toyota Land Cruiser, Frank the Tank, within the first week of us taking it out, we crushed the front fender, got it stuck in some serious mud, and at that point we had learned how to start off-roading. And overlanding was pretty much the same way. Our first time across country, we broke down probably 10 times, and because we had just modded out the truck and had did any kind of runs on it. So we had, you know, things that you learn as you start overlanding. You do not run your truck when you just did the new
You got to shake it down first.
You got to do the shakedown.
But yeah, we learned as we went, and we learned all of the mistakes the hard way.
Yeah.
It's
I'm right
really
I'm in that club too. You know, it's so funny. I have to remind people about how many times I have been stuck in my life, which is a lot. You guys have shared with me a really important story about how you guys decided to start to go outdoors, how you guys decided to start camping even. So,
yeah, because we were, and I think in a lot of regards still are, city people. Before we transitioned to full-time overlanding, we lived in the middle of Atlanta. Nekota always jokes, if you look at a map where the star is, in Atlanta, that's where we live, like right by Centennial Park. Yeah,
blow the horn. We'll tell you where to park.
Right, but yeah, we were city people, and we did city things: art galleries, museums, hanging out at lounges. So outdoors was not our thing, but we had been struggling in our marriage, and started doing some really intense marriage counseling that was kind of working, but we were still struggling. And after a couple years, she gave us the advice to say yes to each other. She was like, you guys are sitting across from me on this couch saying the exact same things in different ways. You just need to focus on saying yes to each other. So for 30, 60, 90, however many days she said, she was like, just try it.
Try saying yes to each other. And, you know, it was some pretty quick lessons learned, you know, right then and there. We didn't know, I think at that time we had been married just around 10 years. And
I'm sure it was more than that, but okay.
When we were, 12, might have been around 12 years.
Yeah, the 12-year itch, maybe?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's what they call it.
Midlife crisis car had all of it. It was like,
he did.
It was like measles, chicken pox, and poison oak all at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, in that moment, I hadn't realized just how much I had been saying no to my wife from the day that we met. And it started with just my preferences in life, but they were taken away from things that she had enjoyed. And I wasn't open to receiving what it was that she enjoyed in life. So when this concept of saying yes to each other was presented to us, it seemed sort of like an obvious duh, but it really wasn't. And it took some time really for us to get to that point where we recognized how much we were saying no. So Sonya asked for me to go camping with her. And again, city guy, doing the city life. I had my boys. We were hanging out, you know, going to bars, art galleries, me and her, theaters, right, movies, all of the things that you do in a city to say that you enjoy the life, you know.
Right.
And my wife is asking me to go camping. What are you saying here? What are we doing? Yeah. So reluctantly, I said yes, and it was a dark and stormy night.
It really was. That time it really was.
I mean, we didn't even camp in the Air Force. Like, I never camped in the Air Force.
Why would we do that? Yeah. It's a perfectly good dorm. Right?
That's right.
Yeah, and when most people think of camping, you think roughing it, like laying on a hard ground. And I'm like, no, Nekota, it won't be like that. We're going to have a nice little comfy setup. It's going to be great. But we got out there. It really was dark. We drove to Wadmalaw, South Carolina.
Yeah, just outside of South Carolina.
Just outside of Charleston.
Charleston, excuse me. Just outside of Charleston.
And it was raining when we showed up. It was just not what we expected, not what we pictured. It was muddy. Nekota is driving his new for him white 650 Grand Coupe in the mud.
That's a beautiful car.
It was so plush.
And he was like, why do we have to take my car? I was like, because my car is smaller than yours. I had a Z4. So, yeah.
We needed space.
Yeah, we needed a little space. So it only made sense to drive his car. But he wasn't happy about it. And that set the tone for the trip.
Yeah. And I stayed in my feelings that first night. Just really unhappy with being there, not really understanding why I was even saying yes to it. And here I am out in the middle of the woods. I really don't know how to camp. And what are we doing? You know, so
And why?
And why? Yeah, why are we even doing this? So I was really trying to figure out an exit strategy, not just from the camp where we were camping at our friend's house, but from our marriage.
Yeah.
And, you know, you really start feeding yourself with any and every negative thing that you can to justify a position that you hold in your heart. So next morning we get up, I'm still in my feelings about this thing. And Sonya pulls me to the side and she says, look, you can't do anything about the fact that it was cold, windy, rainy, muddy when we came out here, right? You can't do anything about that, but you can choose to be happy.
In this
you
moment.
can choose to live in this moment and try to make the best of it. Bro, it hit me it's like Mike Tyson punching you in the jaw, right? Pow.
Yeah.
I go around
That's
the
a
corner.
Great piece of advice.
Right. So I had to go around the corner, gather my feelings, and really ask myself what it is that I'm doing with my life that I am choosing not to be happy.
Yeah.
Came back with a Snickers bar, brand new guy.
Yeah.
Ended up falling in love with camping that weekend because of just the fun. We were just having so much fun. And it was, I think, a lot because I changed my attitude and was open and receptive to what was happening in that moment. And it made all the difference.
It does seem that, from my perspective, that the only thing that we have control in our life at all is our reaction to things.
Absolutely.
Like we can save money for a rainy day, but we don't even have control over that. The dollar can crash. We can work really hard to be in our careers and feel like we have some security in our job, even owning our own business, but that can change in a moment. Our health can change in a moment. So you're right. The only thing, Sonya, that we do have control over is how we respond to all of that happens in life, the mud. And maybe in some ways that first night of camping was a reflection of where your relationship was. It was
Absolutely.
It was a dark and stormy.
It was a dark and stormy place in our relationship.
Yeah, and waking up the next day and finding a way to be present for each other and change your attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's exactly
that's
where we
amazing.
started.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and I mean, at that camping trip, we borrowed camp gear from my friend, and we were in this BMW, but on the
Yeah.
way back, we both decided that we liked it. It was something that we wanted to do. Nekota wanted to go all the way in. He was like, I want to camp all the time, and I need my own truck. And I'm like, pump your brakes, dude. Just pump your brakes. But we did buy our own tent off Craigslist in the car that day, and we camped like every 4 to 6 weeks. And then August of that year, that was April. So not long after, we did buy the truck because we saw that we were committed to it.
And what an amazing first choice. I'm going to buy an 80 series Land Cruiser. Like, for everybody on this podcast that's listening, they're like, yes. Talk about knowing which one to buy first. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a little bit of homework, but I did get the one with the e-locker, which
Yeah.
is the most coveted. So I was happy and thrilled when it fell in my lap. But that's really all it was. I've been looking for months, looking at every type of vehicle, why the people were choosing it, and just what people were saying about them on forums. And I only had about $6,000 budget at the time.
Right. I was like, look.
She was like, you can buy something, but this is it.
Yeah.
So,
Because
imagine.
he had just bought the midlife crisis car.
Right.
Let's not forget.
And we only had 2 car spots, in
Sure.
our condo. So it was like
Yeah, sure.
we didn't. I had to rent a parking spot from across the street to park the truck.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So it was the right decision. I'm so glad we got it.
Yeah, and do you still have the truck?
Of
We
course.
do. It's at a friend's house right now.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you really cut your teeth off-road with that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And when you first started driving it off-road, was it stock?
Yeah, it was. It had some KO2, some BFG KO2 tires on it, but it didn't even have a stock suspension on it. So whoever had owned it before, I think he was using it for duck hunting. So Dennis owned it originally, and then the second owner was a farmer who also did some duck hunting. But that was essentially it.
Yeah.
But after we bought it, we went up into I can't remember, north of Helen, Georgia, to go along
Trey
this trail.
Mountain.
Yeah, Trey Mountain, because that was the closest place that you could off-road it. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah, 2 weeks later we take it out and
Get it stuck, wreck the fender, all that
crashed
good
the fender
stuff.
the first night, crushed the fender. I mean, just crushed it. Had to put duct tape on the signal light to hold it on. And then the next day we go out and we're going to go off-roading. and we're puddle jumping, getting more and more cocky. And then all of a sudden there was the master, the king mud hole of all mud holes, and it swallowed the truck.
Swallowed it whole.
It spit a tire out. Yeah, so we had to get someone to snatch us out in a Grand Cherokee. He had it off-road ready kind of thing, but he snatched us out and he was like, maybe you should go down the easy side and just go on back to Atlanta.
Right. But that trip after we got stuck, we met another gentleman in a 80 series and, just chatting. And we told him it was our first time. He was like, "Oh, it's your first time?" He was like, "Well, let me give you a tour of Trey Mountain." We aired our tires down because we were like, we knew nothing about off-roading. We weren't even aired down.
Yeah.
We aired our tires down and he was like, "Don't worry, I'll stay with you. I have a compressor, so I'll pump you up when we get down." And me and Nekota, first time, we're kind of creeping through before we met him. But after we met him,
we were different people.
Yeah.
He took the 80 series down Trey Mountain like you would imagine an 80 series going down a Trey Mountain.
He showed us how capable it was.
Yeah, and we were like,
what a gift.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was brutal.
Yeah.
He was an aggressive driver, but we needed to understand it because we were really tiptoeing with a very capable vehicle.
Yeah. And then I think because of that, we realized that we needed to get some training and understand what we were doing. So then we went to our first Overland Expo. We went to Overland Expo East in 2016. The same year, 2016, October.
We didn't know how to off-road. Yeah.
So this was August, October. We went to Overland Expo and was introduced to overlanding, and we were like, "Oh shoot, this is it." I'm sorry. But yeah, we were like, this is it, because we've always loved to travel.
Right.
And then we had this newfound love of the outdoors. We were like, we can combine this new love with our old love, and we can see the world.
Yeah,
this is it.
And we're walking around Overland Expo, and we're seeing all of these different vehicles, all of these different builds, and motorcycles. Everything is out there, and it's like our mind is exploding.
A toy store,
Right.
Yeah, like the endless possibilities.
And it was a small expo,
we
were still overwhelmed.
Yeah. So
those are fun to go to.
Yeah.
Was that the one where it rained a whole bunch?
No. That was the following year.
Okay.
This was the
You
one
guys
at
got it right.
We went to
Biltmore.
both. Yeah, the Biltmore.
We did go
that's
to that
nice.
one too.
That's nice. And one of the things that's so great about those events is the quality of the training. So the fact that you can go, take your own vehicle through a 4-wheel drive course, have someone spot you, give you instruction, it's so beneficial for that. It's one of the things that a lot of people don't know about with Overland Expo is you can buy that experience package and have all of this amazing training in a weekend.
Yeah, we always recommend if you're going for the first time to get that experience package.
Actually, you don't even have to go for the first time. You can go as many times as you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You learn something every time, and you're
there's so
always
many different classes available.
Exactly.
And special thanks to Equipped for supporting today's podcast. More than 15 years ago, Equipped Expedition Outfitters became the first American company to import the best-in-breed vehicle expedition equipment from across the globe. Since their humble beginnings, they have risen to become a go-to leader within the adventure travel industry, continuing to deliver a diverse portfolio of reliable, long-lasting products backed by unparalleled customer service. From shelter solutions from Easy On to portable fridges from National Luna to aluminum storage boxes from Alubox, their ever-growing selection of best-in-class gear increases your capability, comfort, and confidence during any adventure. Visit equippedone.com to gear up. The next question that I've got for you guys is, you start doing these longer trips, and is this when you start to hatch the idea that maybe we can make this, what was the next step for how you got beyond your own adventures to beginning to engage with others? When did that start to happen?
Honestly, it started almost immediately. By the time we had bought the Land Cruiser, the 97 Land Cruiser, our family and friends were starting to ask a lot of questions, because instead of us going to events that we would normally go to or spaces that we would normally be in, Sonya and I were planning camping trips, and they were like, "All right, why do y'all keep going camping?" And we were trying to explain it to them, and they were like, I don't even believe any of the words that are coming out your face right now, so you're dismissed. So we one day when we were out there, we were like, we had been also trying to do a little bit of homework on how to camp because, believe it or not, we were, one of our first times we were trying to figure out how to do a fire using a flint because never seen it before kind of thing, right?
It's like, that seems like it would be a useful skill to know.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go on YouTube and try to figure it out.
Right. But in our homework and doing YouTube video reviews and stuff, we just never saw anyone that looked like us.
Sure.
And we knew that there were a lot of barriers to Black people camping, being outdoors. And we were like, why not just make a few videos? We'll share them with our family and friends and just, let it go from there. Well, when we shared it with them, they were like, well, do you mind if I share it with people? And it just sort of grew from there.
Yeah, sure.
So we were in that capacity pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah, Staples InTents was created very early. We started camping in April. We put out our first video in like October.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was the one that the truck, when we bought the truck. And
when we purchased the truck in August, that was the first video.
Yeah, so
cool.
It sort of started there, and it seemed like when the videos were coming out, when we made our way over to Overland Expo, people there recognized some of those early videos, and I mean,
which was weird,
like 1,000 followers, and they're like, "We know you." And we're looking around like, "You know who?" And we're looking around for who they know. I know that laugh.
That's so great.
Yeah, even Ron, we were sitting there looking at axes together at a booth, and he was like, wait a second, I know y'all Staples InTents. He was like, Rashad's not gonna believe this. Yeah, so it was really, really weird.
Yeah, right from the beginning that we were starting to inspire people, even early on with just making the videos that we were producing. They were looking at it and sharing it with other their friends and family, and they were like, I didn't even know Black people did this. And whatever it is that you two have done is like super cool, so maybe I can try it.
Yeah.
And that then became impetus for us to just lean into it a little bit more, try to make sure that we understood it, because for us, we were still really trying to focus on our marriage. And going out into these spaces for us was about trying to get to this happy place. How do we get to where we chillax, where we're enjoying hammock time? Because, there was no connection with the serenity that you have when you're out in the forest. Yeah. The quiet or the insects or the wildlife that you hear. We were completely disassociated with it because all of the noises that we ever heard were mostly tied to the city, and maybe when we went home, if you could get some quiet time there.
Yeah, sure.
And going outside, we realized one of the things living in the city, like in the middle of downtown, it's never quiet.
Never quiet.
Like there's always some type of mechanical noise.
Yeah, sure.
And we did not realize it until we started going camping. It's like, oh, it's so quiet out here. This is great. And now any mechanical noise, it's like, what is that?
What is it? Why is it doing that?
Yeah, that makes sense, though. You guys have totally conditioned yourself for a different experience.
Yeah, even when we were in Mexico one morning, the Gold Zero, the 1500, was kind of overheating and the fan was running. And we're like, what is that noise? Why is it? Because, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no people around. Right. No other vehicles around. Nekota was like, who's running a generator? But no, it was us.
Yeah, it's amazing how we pick up on those things. And then it gets quiet enough that you actually hear your own blood flowing through your ear. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So for you, it's the voices in your head that you hear?
Yeah. I hear them all the
time. I have to ask them often, like, what are they saying?
Fill me in.
Fill me in. It's like, because I can see it. I can see it in his face. We'll be in the car. I'll be like on the phone or trying to do some work or something. Because Nekota's a driver. He'll be working. And then I'll look up and he'll be like, wait a second. What are you talking about?
Who are you talking to?
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's really interesting.
We learn a lot about ourselves when we spend that much time traveling. Yeah, alone. Yeah, that's good. And I probably learned a lot about each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely learn a lot about each other being in small spaces.
Just like right now. This is our distance.
That would be, you'd have a little bit more than that in the 200 series.
Just a little.
So when you look back on these last couple trips, Sonya, what is something that you didn't know about Nekota that now you admire in him because of these travels?
You know, I've known Nekota for a really long time.
Yeah,
Like 25 years. So I don't think it was much that I didn't know about him.
sure.
But what I learned is on these most recent trips is how to communicate with him better. You know, we're always striving to work on these skills, but a lot of times I say Nekota doesn't listen. And it's really not that he doesn't listen. It's just that I'm not communicating properly, you know. So
Or the way that he needs to.
or the way that he needs to hear.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I think in Mexico more recently, because Mexico was a really, really hard trip for us.
Yeah.
It was our first time as full-time overlanders in our own vehicle. And there were a lot of stresses. So a lot of tension in Mexico. But it really forced us to kind of take a step back and think about what we were communicating, what the energy that we were giving off.
Yeah.
Because it's not just necessarily the other person.
So you two had learned how to say yes to each other more often, and now you're
Yes.
figuring out how to say yes to each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how for you, Nekota, now that you've seen Sonya, you know, take the initiative that she has with all these new business opportunities for you guys and traveling, what's something that you've learned that's new about someone you spent 25 years of your life with?
Her leadership style, you know, her ability to really lean into supporting people who are supporting us, that are bringing us help.
Yep.
She really takes the time to get to know them, understand who they are, and bring that forward in the help that they provide for us. It's been amazing to watch, and it happens all the time, but the trait really does go back to how she interacts with her nieces or nephews and her family in general. It's almost like an extension of it, but somehow she's managed to become a serious leader in how she handles people. Yeah, it's really remarkable. Her people skills are bar none.
Yeah, and
Thank
I've
you.
I've experienced that. I can see the strength of your leadership as well. You have a natural way of communicating with people who admire what you do, and you're trying to inspire them, all the way up to a business partner that you're trying to develop a relationship with financially. I've seen that, yeah, for sure. I can see that too, Nekota.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
You guys.
No, it's
Take dust off your shoulder.
well, and isn't that the whole point of all of this, is for us to grow as individuals and to learn and to be inspired and to be creative and have these experiences, and then also do it together with others so we can share that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and the togetherness was I think the thing that we had the issue with in our early camping career, because camping was always about me and Nekota growing closer together, and we would get these messages like, "Oh, I want to camp with you." I was like, "I don't know about that," but we weren't at that point in our outdoor journey to really let people in, you know. But now we're all about sharing the experience.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue to talk about the gathering.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys have spent this really important time together, building your skills, building your marriage. What inspired you to say, we're going to have our own event to do that, to bring everybody together? What did you feel was missing that needed to be offered to the community, and what inspired you to do it?
So I recently resigned from my full-time job, and I was like, I need to figure this thing out, you know. And just, you know, the more and more I thought about what we were doing virtually with our YouTube and Instagram, it was really all about education and inspiration. And we did have so many people to request, I want to go camping with you. I need some instruction. I don't necessarily feel comfortable. You know, I need help.
Sure.
But you can't take everyone out individually, you know. So we had this idea. It was like, why not just create a big event? And we had done some smaller campouts before with like 15, 20 people. But why not create a big event to do just that, continue to provide in-person education and inspiration. So give people a safe space where they felt welcome and comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're not comfortable, then you're not going to have a good experience. And then throughout the weekend, host workshops to teach them basic skills, camp cooking, how to build a fire, how to recreate responsibly, and then some more advanced courses for the people who are already into the outdoors, like solar. What else did we do? I can't remember.
I know we did firecraft,
Yeah,
camp cooking.
Yeah, we did like a safety course.
Personal safety, how to bring someone out of the woods in case you
If
get
they're
hurt.
injured.
Yeah, if they're injured or hurt. So
And that was at the event you guys did last
Yeah,
year.
that was at the first event.
first aid and body care.
And what? Where was that located? The first one.
Yeah, it was right outside of Atlanta in Crawfordville, Georgia. So it was close to home.
About 45 minutes east of Atlanta,
city.
heading towards Augusta.
Well, it makes it easier for you guys to manage that too.
Yeah, it was easier. But this year, since we were transitioning full time, we were like, we don't necessarily have to do it in Atlanta. So we decided to grow the event to 2 locations. So this August, the 18th through the 22nd, will be in Van Coram, Colorado, which is in the desert of southwest Colorado, but it's right between Moab and Telluride, so a great location. And then in October, the 14th through 16th, we'll be in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which is right outside of Asheville, another beautiful location, you know, right at the base of the Smoky Mountains, tons of, you know, outdoor adventure.
That's so exciting, though. I mean, and how many folks did you have at your first event? It looked like it was well attended.
Yeah, the first event was about 120 people.
That's awesome.
And I think that just spoke to the need in the community.
Yeah,
you know, it's
sure.
not that people don't want to go outside. It's just they need a safe place to learn.
Yeah, to start to feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's what we provided. So at the end of the event, I mean, we literally had people like, I don't know what your plans are, but you need to do this again or else we're going to hunt you down and find you.
Yeah, don't make us come looking for you. It was crazy.
Oh, well, and it's achieving that goal of inspiring and educating.
It really is.
Yeah, that's,
it really
that's
is.
awesome.
Yeah, we're hearing people's stories about them preparing to come to the gathering in Van Coram, as well as hearing about like new people who are going to rent RVs to come to the one in Hendersonville.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we have people taking their first solo trip cross country this year, which is amazing.
Yep.
Because, I mean, we took ours just a few years ago. So to inspire people and provide an avenue for that they want to do that,
Yeah.
it's just really exciting.
Yeah, it
Well,
really is.
and I am excited to be there. So I'll be at the Colorado event. So those that are listening, hope we can get this out with enough time for people to start to plan to show up. But I'm excited to be there, and we're gonna do some classes, and we're gonna spend some time with folks and just learning their stories and talking about travel around the world. So I'm super excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm super excited, especially with this event because the programming is great. I mean, you're there, Scott. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Let's
I'm
start
sorry.
there.
Yeah, you just lost 20 participants.
But yeah, I mean, in addition, Philip Henderson, who was the leader of the Full Circle Everest movement, will be there. He's a NOLS instructor and just led the first all-black expedition to summit Everest.
I saw that.
Yeah, so that's
incredible.
amazing. And then we'll have Zelzin, I can't remember how to pronounce her last name, but she is the first female and first Mexican to complete the Triple Crown of through hikes. It's just great programming.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
A lot of inspiration.
yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. So we'll have more information in the show notes and in the description on YouTube about how to get signed up for the event as well, and then also your event that you're going to have back east later in the year too. Mm-hmm. So we'll make sure people know what's going on with that. And if people want to get involved with what you're doing with Black People Off-Road, mention like what inspired you to start that, and how can people get involved? How can they support? How can they learn more about what you're doing with Black People Off-Road too?
Yeah, Black People Off-Road. That was our brainchild that spawned from an experience that took place maybe about 2018, 2019.
No, October 2019.
Yeah,
it was
October
right before the election.
Yeah, right before the election.
Okay.
We had a group of some black guys, some white guys, and we all decided we were going to go north of Chattanooga to do some trail rides. So everybody had the rigs. It's probably about, what, 7 or 8 of us, 7 or 8 rigs. And when we get to doing the trail, it was Prentice Cooper, amazingly beautiful country up there.
Wow.
But it's also a really good trail system for people to play around with, decent enough to challenge any off-roader, but not so much so that, you know, you end up damaging your rig.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't recommend it for RAV4s or anything.
Sure.
Don't get cocky out there. You know, it says 4-wheel drive only for a reason. But we had gone out there that particular day. We got about halfway through the route, stopped, you know, to have a drink and just enjoy the moment of all of us being out here, because it's a really cool moment. And the white friends that were with us asked if we had brought any guns, and we were like, no. And they were
Should
like,
we
well,
have?
right. And we were like, should we have? They were like, well, we brought a trunk full kind of thing. And we were like, well, what's the reason for this? And they shared that in some of the off-road clubs that they had been privy to, that made them feel uncomfortable about our safety. And at that point, we felt like, all right, if our white friends feel that we are not safe when we're out in these outdoor recreating spaces, then there's a different conversation that needs to take place. And we have a role in that, because we are we're probably the forefront of Black people that are off-roading. So when we got back, we had some really long conversations about it and was like, what can we do? What can we say? And Sonya got the sketchbook out, I believe, and started playing around with some graphics, and she created this really cool.
I love the T-shirt. It's awesome.
Yeah, she created this really cool logo.
Yeah.
And Black People Off-Road was born. And since its inception, I think I'm aware of about 4 different clubs that have formed, mostly Jeepers, but there's an ATL trail team, which they're also going to be at the Van Corum event, and I'm sure they'll be at the Asheville event as well, but they're going to be teaching a course there. But they formed a group. Yeah, they're about 75 deep, I believe, maybe a little bit more.
That's awesome.
And there were at least 2 or 3 other clubs that formed, just going out into these spaces, and they're awesome to camp with. They already practice the leave no trace kind of behavior, so it's just really good that we started to change the narrative with what was taking place outdoors. And for us, it was like, can we create positive images of people outdoors recreating, because we need to see each other to know that we can also go out and feel comfortable in these same spaces.
Yeah, so Black People Off-Road was really created as a community to provide some visibility for other Black and brown people who enjoy getting out. And it really is meant to be a beacon of light and positive energy.
Yeah.
You know, thank you for rocking your Black People Off-Road shirt, because it's not just for Black people. It's a symbol of safety and security, and that you're welcome. So anyone that wants to support the movement, feel free to go to staplesandtents.com, purchase their Black People Off-Road shirt. There are patches and decals and all that stuff. So
Yeah, and what I've enjoyed is just the conversations that come up with it.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, sometimes they'll ask if that's part of my ancestry, or sometimes they'll ask if how did they get involved, or is there a local club, or
Yeah.
And so really interesting conversations come up from wearing the T-shirt, which has been awesome. So I can just direct them to the Instagram, and they can find out more information. But it's so important that our industry reflects the same diversity as our country does.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And it should. It's healthy places when that's in balance. So it's really exciting to see what you guys are doing. I think it's so important.
Yeah, and it's a thrill to be a part of it. It's a bigger conversation than us, and just to have a small role in it and inspire other people to get out and camp and connect. Because when you're out here in these spaces and you're off-roading, you're bound to come across other off-roaders, and maybe you'll have a similar rig and you want to have a discussion about it, and there's a point of connection. We think that those kind of connections are going to be the things that build the America that we all want to experience.
Absolutely.
And we're all outside doing really cool stuff together, and can drink a beer together, and then, go home and say, hey, I had a great time.
I think we all benefit from nature in the same way.
Yeah.
Like it's been only a few hundred years that we have really we've put ourselves in cities. I mean, it's not that it's been a very short period of time that people have been kind of in cities and not out in nature and not experiencing nature. And I think we need it to be healthy.
We do, and what's interesting is that in our travels, the people that we see are that the people that we see that are the most happy. They're the people that live the most remote, that don't have access to, the TVs and the radios and
social media,
the internet and social media and all that stuff, because it can be draining.
Yeah.
If you can't, ground yourself and channel that energy, all that stuff is draining.
You want to see the happiest kids in the world, they will be in a place where they don't have access to that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. They'll be out playing with each other, all different ages. They've got whatever they got to play with, but they're laughing and running around and like they're having a good time.
Exactly.
Dark 30 to dark 30.
Yeah,
that's how long we play.
That's right.
But legit, that was that was probably the coolest thing to me about the gathering last year, is that every single morning the kids, they legit woke up, crack of dawn, and there was an area that we left open, and they played soccer there all day. I walked to my tent, like headed to bed, and kids were still out playing. And that just truly brought me joy that we created the space that, one, parents feel comfortable leaving, just letting their kids run around. But two, the kids are like not asking for video games, and it was amazing.
Yeah, what an incredible, like unexpected byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Is not only are the parents having a great experience, but the kids are not on their phones or not on their Xboxes. They're out running around, like smoked at the end of the day, tired. Right. And their parents are like, "Thank you so much, thank you so much,
thank you for this reprieve in life."
Yeah, and this year specifically for the Asheville event, a lot of our friends and just people have reached out to us. It's like, okay, I'm going to bring my kids. I'm going to try, because I saw how much fun the kids had last time, and like one of our friends specifically is so not an outdoor person, but they mentioned it to their kids, and their kids were interested. And they was like, okay, I can't deprive my kid from doing this, even though I don't like the outdoor, right, from having an experience.
Yeah, sure.
So,
this content is brought to you by Overland Journal, our premium quality print publication. The magazine was founded in 2006 with the goal of providing independent equipment and vehicle reviews, along with the most stunning adventures and photography. We care deeply about the countries and cultures we visit and share our experiences freely with our readers. We also have zero advertorial policy and do not accept any advertiser compensation for our reviews. By subscribing to Overland Journal, you're helping to support our employee-owned and veteran-owned publication. Your support also provides resources and funding for content like you are watching or listening to right now. You can subscribe directly on our website at overlandjournal.com. You guys recently made a trip to Africa. Talk about the vehicle. Now, you guys used a Hilux for that, right? Okay, so then talk about where you landed, where you drove, and some of that experience over there.
Yeah, so we flew into South Africa, which was really easy for us because we went to Africa in 2015, and we had friends there. So
made new friends.
Yeah, we made new friends. Our very first
day. You
met
them for the first time in your first trip.
Yes,
gotcha.
In 2016. So
awesome.
When we went to plan this trip, they was like, "Oh, you have to come stay with us." So we flew into South Africa, stayed with them for a few days while we, kind of
amazing people too,
decompressed, and then we picked up our vehicle in Johannesburg.
Yeah, we rented from Bushlore.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
And we hired a 2022 Toyota GD6. It was a four-cylinder turbo diesel. The only mods that they had did to it, I think, were the tires. They put some Cooper Discoveries on it, STTs, really good tire that we got a chance to really explore. But it had like 300 was it 300?
Yeah, it had 300 kilometers on it when we got it. So it was brand new.
Brand spanking
new. We broke it in, though. Very well.
Africa will do that.
Yeah.
Those roads are rough.
Oh, man, the roads are brutal in Africa.
They are. Not technically brutal, but they're just the corrugations and everything else brutal.
Yeah, they wear on a truck after a period of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you leave Joburg.
Once we picked the truck up in Joburg, we drove to Namibia. So we made like one stop before we crossed the border and entered south, like kind of near Fish River Canyon. We entered kind of that way.
Yeah.
So then we just snaked through the desert and
So beautiful, isn't it?
up the coast and through the Caprivi.
What did you think of the Caprivi Strip? I haven't been there yet.
Caprivi is a completely different experience. You know, Namibia is mostly a lot of different deserts for the most part. But once you get towards the northern part and you start to make your way west in Namibia, you're going to travel across the Caprivi, which was essentially where the Germans were conquering right before World War One.
Sure.
Pulled out so that they could go back to fight in World War One. And so there's about 100-mile wide kind of strip across the top of Namibia that is pretty much untouched as far as any European influences. So it's a very special place that you get a good opportunity to connect not just with nature, but the people that are there and the different ethnic groups that occupy that space or occupy that land now. Some of them are never left, but other ones had migrated into that area. But to go through it and to see how people live and to see the simplicity of what life really looked like before the Europeans had come in to conquer that section was pretty amazing.
It wasn't until we got to the Caprivi I was like, oh, this is real Africa. You know, you see the huts and the people in their traditional attire.
A lot more often there.
A lot more often. You encounter more people that don't speak English and have no clue what the words are that are coming out of your mouth. And before we got there, everyone, they just described the Caprivi as different. And we was like, okay, what do you mean different? But the first place we camped, we walked in, it's the closest thing to the Garden of Eden that I could ever imagine. There was this big tree with these huge pods on it, and it was amazing.
Amazingly dazzling. It was right along a river, and there were hippopotamus that came out, and the guy, not a ranger, that was the host.
Isaac?
The Kool-Aid, what's the name of it? I can't recall his name right now. But he came by to help us check into the campsite. And like we said, we were right alongside of the river. And Calicious says to us, you should expect the hippo. It is not uncommon for them to come through the camp at night. And if they do, remember, you are a guest in their home.
Good
Don't
advice.
pick a fight. Don't argue with it. Don't poke it. Just
Don't
leave them
stand
alone.
up.
Don't
Don't talk.
Don't talk politics.
Yeah, don't talk politics at all. And it will probably pass by and continue on. So, you know, as you can imagine, as he's walking off, we had a ton more questions.
He's like, so that's it? He's just going to say, a hippo's going to walk by and be good.
Right. Just gonna leave it at that.
So at that moment, we knew that we were really deep into the bosom of Africa.
Yeah, sure.
That was tied to what our imaginations had suggested that it would be.
Yeah, I mean it's the cradle of humankind. I mean it's just an ancient place, and it feels like it's the most at home I've ever felt in my life. And it's not that I don't love Prescott and I love like where I'm from and things like that, but because I do. But when you're in Africa, you feel like it's like I'm where humans came from.
Yeah,
like,
Exactly. And you are.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we met the Damara, some of the earliest people on the planet, their descendants. And that was a living museum, and that was in Namibia as well. The Himba, we met the
incredible
Herero.
people.
Yeah,
Incredible people.
But yeah, just the culture. The culture was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was the transition was when we got into the Caprivi. You know, even like the customs that we learned. Calicious, the same guy, Nekota asked, so if I'm introducing myself, if I approach a person, how should I introduce myself? He's like, oh, you need to bow, clap 3 times. Yeah.
And that was some of the cultural things.
I love
it because it was like, in understanding where we were in the different ethnic groups that were there, everywhere you go, we think that you should try to learn a little bit of the language, at least how to say hello, and a few other catchphrases or whatever. It goes a long way with showing a good sentiment to the people of that country.
Yeah,
some respect.
Yeah, some respect. But I don't think anybody requires you to speak the whole language there, right?
Sure.
So we were trying to understand where we were and who were the people there. And he was like, well, these are the different groups that are here. You're very close to Angola, which is across the river, so to speak, and it's not uncommon to see people migrate from there and live here. Now, this is what it was but this was what was so interesting. He started the conversation with, if you wanted to say hello, it's Muzahili Chwani. And we were like, okay, what? Muzahili Chwani? And he took the time to correct us until we got it right.
Okay.
And he was like, but if there's someone else around, they're older than you, then you need to show a sign of respect. And you hold your hand on your one hand this way, and it's Muzahili Chwani, and you can bow.
Okay.
Now, if
All right,
they're
I like that.
a chief or along those lines, then it can get more significance, where it's 3 claps and Muzahili Chwani to a bigger group. So it was a whole lot of coaching that took place just that first night, in addition to him telling us about the hippo. Now, so when we
Did
left.
you do that to the hippo?
No. Right.
Fortunately, we didn't see the hippo. We just heard it.
Right.
They make some noise.
They do.
When their feet are coming out of the river, you know they're coming.
Yeah. So we ended up having some really good cultural experiences and some great exchanges along the way. But they were just very special when we were along the Caprivi. Just very special.
That's amazing. And then you guys continued into Botswana and then back to South Africa?
We crossed over to Botswana and we stopped in Zambia because it was like we can't be this close to Victoria Falls and not see it.
Sure.
So we crossed over to Zambia for a few days and experienced that whole water system, which is amazing.
That's
to understand that, all the rivers come together and the falls gives power to like 4 countries.
Yeah.
But after that, we went back into Botswana and went through northern Chobe, down into southern Chobe, into Moremi and the Okavango.
Yeah, the Okavango.
Yeah.
We flew out. So for that, we flew. Had I interrupted you? Had you gotten to Kasane yet?
Timon.
Mound, right?
Because we were saying mound, and they was like, no, it's mound.
I was like, where's this? What is this mound? Where are you all talking about?
What are you talking about?
You're not from around here, right?
That is an outpost, isn't it?
Well,
yeah, Mound is nice.
Yeah, it's a really
middle of
nice,
nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, but I mean,
It's cool.
It's become a decent sized city,
No doubt.
And what we realized through our travels, if you ever go into Botswana, make sure you have enough money. If you don't, you're going to have to go see Miss K in Maun so that you can pay all your park fees.
Yeah.
So,
I got you.
Yeah. So from Maun, we flew deeper into the Okavango, and we stayed at this campsite. I think it was called Satari. And, I mean, it was a very remote location. A river boat had to come out to get us. And we spent about, 3 or 4 days up in there and really had a strong connection with the heart of the Okavango, and took a helicopter ride, so we got to see a lot of the wildlife. Oh man, it was amazing. Amazing space to be in, amazing place to experience, and that was when I felt like I was touching the hand of God.
Yeah,
you can look out and see it, and the water, the wildlife that is there. It's just an amazing place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's truly special spot on the planet.
Yeah.
Well, and talking about that kind of thing, what you guys have done is truly special, and I just think it's such an honor for us to have you on the podcast. And
it's an honor to be here,
and to talk about these really important organizations that you guys have started, and these really important events that you guys are growing in the country. Can you help people know how to find out more about you guys as individuals and your different organizations? How do people find out more information about what you're doing?
So we're Staples and Tents. Our last name is Staples, and we sleep in tents. And
INTENTS.
Yes.
InTents.
So pretty much any social media platform. Our website is staplesandtents.com. We have YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And then you can also go to Black People Off-Road on Instagram and join that community and be an active part. Make sure you tag Black People Off-Road, because Nekota is always looking for different people of color and allies to
feature.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, just to make sure that we put the community out there and give some visibility. And then for anyone who wants to support, we also have Patreon, which we give our Patreons behind the scenes content and all the inside information.
Yeah, sure.
They get a whole lot of ugly stuff.
And then to find out more on the gathering events, what's the Instagram and the website on that?
So all the gathering information is embedded in the Staples InTents website. In the menu,
Perfect.
there's a drop down for the gathering with information for the Colorado event as well as the Asheville event. And you can see a recap of last year's events, which were just amazing. And the Instagram for the gathering is The Gathering by SI.
Yeah. One of the things that we love to ask on the podcast is if someone is new coming into overland travel and they want to do like you guys have done and make that change in their life, stand at the edge of the cliff and choose to jump off. What advice would you give them? What would you tell them if you were standing there with them and they want to make that decision to
go full time?
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it.
Let me be that voice in your mind. Do it. But seriously, it is one of those where at a point, I think it is a little bit of a leap of faith. You're not going to have all of the things. You're not going to have the perfect conditions for it.
Mm-hmm.
You should expect a dark and stormy night kind of thing. But do lean into it because it's something that's calling you right there that you need to answer. And the only way to really understand it is to go and explore it. And I think at the heart of any overlander is the desire to explore. Mm-hmm. There's a desire to understand what's around that corner, what's over that mountain. And it's worth going to see because you can really say yes to the world and become something else along this journey.
Yeah, and it's so important. What you're saying is it's taking that movement yourself. Has nothing to do with the truck, nothing to do with the equipment. You can have that or not. I mean, people have gone around the world with nothing. So
right, and I think the reality is we could have transitioned to full-time overlanding last year, but we had an idea of what the correct setup was. We traveled cross country and into Colombia in a ground tent. We didn't need the rooftop tent. We didn't need the winch. We didn't need the bumper. We didn't need the rear bumper. We didn't need all these things. We should have just went.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you get caught up into creating the perfect build and the perfect vehicle, saving the perfect amount of money. And there's no perfect amount of money because eventually it's going to run out. Mm-hmm. There's no perfect build because everything has disadvantages. So it's like if it's something that you want to do, you just have to do it. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary for everyone.
Yeah.
It's still scary now.
Sure, of course.
It's still scary now, but I mean, it was scary going to work every day and hating it. So it's like, why am I doing this?
That's what you should be terrorized of, is doing something that you don't love.
Yeah.
That's what you should be terrorized about.
Because every day you're giving that up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That piece of you up every single day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you two are amazing. It's been so fun to have you here in Prescott, and I'm so excited to see both of you again in Colorado in about a month from now, a little bit less than a month.
A lot less.
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks, I think.
It's going to come up quickly. So we thank you both for being on the podcast, and we thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.